All right, we'll say good morning. Today's daf is Chav Hey, and we are picking up on Chav Hey on Modal of 25a, 3 lines down. A special thank you to Rabbi Kalman Akiva for giving the shir yesterday and doing a remarkable job with just 45 minutes. Baruch Hashem, exceptionally impressive. So we're starting, we'll say 3 lines down from the top on Chav Hey Amud Aleph. Our shir this morning is dedicated by our Talmud Torah sponsors for the month of Cheshvan, Adam and Yudit Ben Zev, in memory of Adam's grandfather, in honor of Adam's grandmother and his parents for being such incredible role models. May HaKadosh Baruch Hu grant them arichos yamim v'shanim. And I will say with that, let us begin. So remember again, we had the Mishnah on Amud Beis yesterday that introduced the concept of hamapeles, shafir, mali, mayim, mali dam, mali ginus. Remember again, we're talking about the woman expels what appears to be an embryo, and we're talking about which types of forms will create tumas leida and which will not. So the Gemara begins with a question. Shalu lifnei Rebbe. So we'll say they asked the following question in front of Rebbe. Hamapeles shafir mali basar mahu. What happens if a woman expels something and it has the appearance of, now we'll say shafir is usually literally translated as embryo, but the truth is it's some type of birth, something that appears like a birth, but in this case again it's a piece of flesh, mali basar, so it's an embryonic form with filled with flesh. Ma, what's the halacha? So Rabbi says, Amar lahem lo shamati. Rabbi said, I never heard this halacha. So we'll say, so first of all, even if you just come for a Gemara like this, right? The entire Shas is worth this, because there's a Gemara in Masechah Shabbos. Remember Shabbos? It was only about 6 years ago, right? The Meretz Hashem, we'll get to it soon. So the Gemara says, Lamad lashon chalomar eini yodea. The Olam, Yomar Adam, a person should always condition himself to say, teach your tongue to say, I don't know. So the Marsha says on that Gemara, why do you have to teach your tongue to say, I don't know? Just say, I don't know. To which the Marsha says, because it is uncomfortable for most of us to say, I don't know. We like to think sometimes that we're all-knowing, that we're omniscient, omnipotent. We like to think that we're all-powerful. And the notion that I don't know something, so more often than not, people would rather make something up than go ahead and say that they don't know. So the Gemara says you have to condition your tongue. It's a din in humility to say, I don't know. So we'll say, you see this? Can you imagine this? They're asking Rebbe in the Beis Medrash. They're asking Mishnah in the Beis Medrash. And what does Rebbe say? I don't know. Lo shamati. Amar lefan of Rabbi Shmuel Rabbi Yossi. So Rabbi Shmuel Rabbi Yossi said, Kach Amar Abba. I have the following misor from my father. Malei dam tmeya. If the shafir is, right, if the embryo is filled with blood, then it's tmeya. Tmeya niddah, Malei basar tmeya leida. So if it's just blood, then it'll be tumas niddah. If it's flesh, then ultimately, again, it will constitute a leida. So we'll say, says Rabbi Shmuel Rabbi Yossi, had you said something new in the name of your father, ultimately we would have listened to you. However, the problem is now, since you're already on record in aligning yourself with the Das Yachid, like Sumcha, Shar Mishum Rabbi Meir, who ultimately aligned himself with Rabbi Meir, Hanami Shemek Rabbi Yoshua Amra. Perhaps again this position is in alignment with Rabbi Yoshua. Ve'ein halacha Rabbi Yoshua, and the halacha does not follow Rabbi Yoshua. Now we'll say, what are we talking about? Disanya hamapeles shafir she'ino merukam. We'll say if a woman goes ahead and expels, again literally translated, an embryo that is not merukam. We'll say merukam means formed. That is not formed. Rabbi Yoshua Omer Vlad. Rabbi Yoshua says that even though the embryo is not formed, ultimately it still constitutes a leida. It's a vlad. The Chachamim say ain't no vlad. The Chachamim say that any shafir, any embryo that is not formed, ultimately does not constitute a leida. Amar Reb Shimon Lakish Mishnah Rabbi Yoshia Machlokes ba'achar. So we'll say, so now we're taking a step back. So we'll say what we're talking about over here is you have some type of embryonic sac that ultimately is filled with blood, is filled with flesh. Here the Gemara says like this. So Shlach name Rabbi Oshia, the machlokes, when a woman expels something that looks like an embryo, an embryonic sac, when is the machlokes? Ba'achar. When it's filled with cloudy liquid. Rashi says over here, Ba'achar, Mashe Besocha Achar, the Ikalamemar Vlad Haya Vinimuach. So I will say something resembling an embryonic sac comes out of the woman and it's filled with liquid that is cloudy. That's when there is a concern there's a chashash that maybe there was a fetus in there, and the fetus dissolved. And because the liquid is cloudy, that's why we could be concerned that maybe there was a fetus. But if a woman expels something, some type of sac, and is filled with clear liquid, divrei hakol eino vlad. Everyone will agree, ultimately, that's what? That it's not a vlad. Or as if it's totally clear, not a vlad. Fine. Rabbi Shmuel Silber, we're supposed to say Rabbi Shmuel Silber that we mentioned before. Rabbi Shmuel Silber Amar, bitsalul machlokes. Rabbi Shmuel Silber says, with clear liquid, it is a machlokes. So both say, so the shaila is, what does Rabbi Shmuel Silber mean? Ibari lahu, bitsalul machlokes. Ava ba'achar divrei hakol vlad. Is Rabbi Shmuel Silber saying, the machlokes is when the embryonic sac is filled with clear liquid. But if it's cloudy liquid, everyone agrees that it's a vlad. Ol dilma, bein bazeh machlokes. Or maybe Rabbi Shmuel Levi is saying, in both cases, salul and achar, ultimately again it's a machlokes, which the Gemara says, teku. The Gemara says, we're not sure. Teku. May say, Gemara raises a kasha, as Zudar Rabbi Shmuel ben Chananya, so we'll say fascinating drasha. Rabbi Shmuel ben Chananya had the following drasha. Vayas Hashem Elokim la'adam uli ishto, kasnos or vayal bishem. So we'll say, Sechlish Baruch Hu min Adam and Chava, kasnos or. Now we'll say, and he clothed them. Remember, this pasuk is taking place after Adam and Chava eat from the Eitz Das Tovara. So they realized, as Adam quickly realizes their nakedness. So HaKadosh Baruch Hu makes for Adam and Chava kasnos are, and he clothed them. So we'll say Melamed. So listen to the drasha, then we'll go back and explain it. Melamed Shein HaKadosh Baruch Hu osa ar la Adam ela imkein notzar. Now we'll say what the drasha is picking up on is as follows. The pasuk itself has an extraneous word. What's the extraneous word? Or. Right? It could have just said, Vayas Hashem Elokim la'adam uli ishto kasnos. Right? Clothing. Why kasnos or? So Rashi understands that the or itself is a modifier for the kasnos. That either HaKadosh Baruch Hu made them, literally, kasnos are, clothing that warms the flesh, clothing from flesh, something that houses flesh, like a fingernail substance, Rashi says. Give different interpretations. Here the Gemara is saying over here, that word ar is extra. We see from here that what? That ar is something that represents creation. Alma, ba'ar talya milsa. So I'll say, interestingly enough, the drasha of Rabbi Shmuel ben Chananya is, you see from here that the defining factor of human existence is ar. Only if you have skin are you considered to be ultimately an entity. Therefore, Rabbi Shmuel ben Chananya says that when it comes to the formation of an embryo, at what point in time is the embryo considered to be in existence? When it has skin. When it has skin. So the Gemara says, Lo shna achar v'lo shna salul. Therefore, this whole discussion in general about clear liquid, cloudy liquid, doesn't really matter. That's not the determinant. According to Rabbi Shmuel ben Chananya, the determinant ultimately is what? Is actual skin. Is actual skin. I will say, if you take a look, no, not yet. Sorry. So the Gemara says as follows. So now, I just want to point out, this is now a new opinion. Up until now, we've been focusing on trying to figure out if a woman expels something that has the appearance of an embryo. So we're trying to figure out how do you determine if it's an embryo versus just some type of discharge. So we have Machlokes Reish Lakish and Rabbi Shmuel ben Levi. Reish Lakish saying that ultimately, again, salul, if the liquid is clear, everyone agrees that what? That is totally, I say mutter, meaning it's not a vlad. It's not a birth. Achor, if it's a little bit cloudy, that's a machlokes. Rabbi Shmuel ben Levi is saying that even by tzalul it's a machlokes. So we don't understand Rabbi Shmuel ben Levi is saying, but tzalul it's a machlokes, but ultimately by achor everyone agrees or not. That was a teku. Then the Gemara introduces Rabbi Shmuel ben Chananya. Rabbi Shmuel ben Chananya says that what? It's actually all about skin. Skin, right? Flesh, skin. Once the fetus has skin, then by definition it's considered to be a vlad entity. But in the absence of skin, any type of discharge or anything she expels will not have the status of a leda. So says the Gemara, let's go back. Remember, we thought the conversation about Shitas Rabbi Shmuel ben Levi by Achor ultimately again was a teku. Now we're going back and revisiting it. If you want to say that their machlokes is only if the liquid inside the embryonic sac is clear. I'm sorry. If you want to say when the liquid is clear, that's the machlokes. Then I will say that's ultimately again why I need the pasuk. Look at Rashi. Rabbi Yoshua the mishum or luchudei have vlad. So I'll say the pasuk comes to teach me that ultimately again skin by itself is the determinant for a vlad. But ultimately, again, if you say that they're machlokes, is even when the liquid itself is murky, right, is cloudy, lama likra, why do I need the pasuk? Svara ba'almahu. Ultimately, again, it should just be a svara. Look at Rashi. Elai amit taimid Rabbi Yeshua mishum da'acharhu ve'ika lamemar nimuach v'lav mishum or kra lamali. So I'll say ultimately again, if you want to say that the reason Rabbi Yeshua is because the liquid is cloudy, right? And ultimately, therefore, you could say there was a fetus there, then it dissolved, and not necessarily because you need any type of flesh. So then why do I need the pasuk? To which the Gemara says, Shmamina b'tzala machlokes. Rather, what do you have to say? That in Shitas Rabbi Yoshua ben Levi, it must be that just like Achar is a machlokes, so Salul will also be a machlokes, Shmamina. Good. The Chinamar of Nachem Ara Baravua Machlokes Ba'achor Aval B'Tzalul Divrei Hakol Eino Vlad. So what's Rav Nachman also in Ara Baravua that the Machlokes is in Achor only when the liquid inside the embryonic sac is cloudy. However, if it's clear, everyone agrees that it's not a Vlad. I say if you have clear liquid in some type of sac, that is not a birth. Eisvei Rava Rav Nachman. So Rava raised the kasha to Rav Nachman. Ela Amru. But they said, Simin Vlad bebehema daka. So we'll say, so just to give you the context over here, look at Rashi. Ela Amru. Rashi says, Reisha bebechoros parak halokeach parak halokeach behem ovid kolchavim. So we'll say, going back to Maseches Bechoros a little bit, Le'inyan liftor es sheba acharav mitoras bechar. So we'll say, the subject over here is as follows, that we know that sometimes a woman could birth something that may not live, but yet may be able to exempt that which comes after it from Toras Bechar. Okay, so here we go. So the Gemara says as follows. So Ela Amru, Simin Vlad bebehemadaka. So we'll say, how do you know by behemadaka? Behemadaka are small animals. How do you know what constitutes a birth by behemadaka so as to exempt that which comes after it from Toras Bechar? Tinuf. Even just tinuf. Look at Rashi. Tinuf. La'achar shekibla min azacha v'nosra avlad nimuach v'zav himenu v'yotzei v'holech v'oso tinuf potrasa min b'chor. So, interestingly enough, so by behemadaka, if you know that it became pregnant from the zachar and it even just discharges something minimal, that's enough to exempt the animal that comes after it from b'chor. Begasa. What about by behemagasa? Shalya. A placenta, right? If it discharges a placenta, ultimately, again, that's enough to exempt that which comes after it from Bechor. Bi'isha, what about by a woman? Shafir v'shilya. And both says Shafir v'shilya doesn't mean and, rather it means or. Rashi says, O shafir, O shalya. An embryo or a placenta, that's enough to go ahead and exempt that which comes after it from Bechor. So the Gemara says, Isha Shapir B'Shalya, Vilu Shapir B'Behema Lo Pater. So interesting enough, I will say, by a behema, it just says the placenta, it doesn't say anything about an embryo. Si'i Amrit B'Shlama B'Tzala Machlokes. If you say that they're machlokes, ultimately, is in a case of even where the liquid inside the embryonic sac is clear, that's still a machlokes. Mishum hachi isha de Rabbi Bakra Patra Bashafir. Therefore, again, a woman who has a pasuk that speaks to this, ultimately, again, if she just is Patra Bashafir, Bebehema, the lo Rabbi Bakra, but by Behema, ultimately, again, where there is no pasuk, lo Patra Bashafir, ultimately, again, the presence of the embryo is not enough to just simply go ahead and exempt that which comes after it from Bachar. Eli Amrit. But if you want to say that ultimately what? That there's a machlokes even when the liquid inside is cloudy, michdi svarahu. There should be a svara. Maishna isha umaishna behema. Why should there be any distinction by an isha by behema misalacha? Misavrit Rabbi Yehuda mifshat pashitle. Do you think that Rabbi Yoshua, this whole thing is clear to him? Rabbi Yoshua sapuki misapkele. Well, see, you're right. Rabbi Yoshua is misupak about this halacha, and therefore va'azil hacha l'chumra v'hacha l'chumra. And I will say essentially he's going l'chumra in both cases. How so? Isha dimamonahu safek mamona l'kula. So this is very interesting. So when it comes to Bachar by an Isha, so this is a din in Mammon, right? Why is it a din in Mammon? Because ultimately, again, it's a din in Bechora, right? It's a din in double portion. So when you have a suffix Mammon, ultimately, again, we'll say suffix Mammon Lakula. Gabe behema di isurahu. I will say by behema, where ultimately it's a matter of isser. Remember, why is that? Because remember again, by behema, bachar behema, that firstborn animal is asar begiza va'avoda. You're not allowed to shear it, you're not allowed to work it. The Gemara says, Gabi behema di isuruhu, dika lagabi giza va'avoda, safek isur l'chumra. Rabbi Yeshua ultimately again will have a safek isser, and safek isser will be resolved l'chumra. Hachenam, so too back to our case, Gabi isha safek tuma l'chumra. So we'll say by an isha ultimately, again, if trying to figure out tumas leida, we will say safek tuma l'chumra. Umi mesapkile, but is Rabbi Yeshua really mesupak about all of this? V'hakra ka'amar, but yet he quoted a pasuk to which the Gemara says midrabanan ukra asmachta ba'alma. The truth is, remember, I will say these are chashashos midrabanan, and therefore again the kra itself ultimately is just an asmachta. Good. Amrali Rabbi Chanina bar Shamia l'Rav. So we'll say, so ultimately again, we're still left with the machlokes of Shimon Lakish and Rabbi Yeshua ben Levi about what happens ultimately in the case of where she expels this embryonic sac. Is it only going to be if it has cloudy liquid, in which case there's a chashash, ultimately that there was a vlad that dissolved, but clear liquid, everyone is saying that it's okay, or it's okay, i.e. that it's not a vlad, might be something else, but it's not a vlad. Or do we have third opinion who ultimately says that Allah Chalamais, everything is dependent on the presence of skin. We're going to come back to that in just a little bit, because that's a brand new opinion about saying that obviously if you adopt that position, that the definition of vlad is something that has that has skin, that definitely goes ahead and raises the bar significantly. Amli Rav Chanina bar Shamia l'Rav. Ha Rabbi Yishmael Rabbi Yossi, v'ha Rabbi Yoshia, v'ha Rabbi Yoshua ben Levi. Mar kiman svirle. Supposed to listen to this. So they said. So you have Rav Chanina bar Shamia said to Rav. He said, Rav, right? We have all of these different opinions. All these different opinions, right? Rashi says over here, Ha Rebbe, Damrle el lo shamati, right? Rebbe said, I don't know the halacha, right? Because remember again, this whole thing started out where they asked Rebbe, if a woman miscarries an embryo or an embryonic sac that is filled with flesh, what's the halacha? Rebbe said, I don't know. So we have Rebbe who says, I don't know. We have Rabbi Yishmael, Rashi says, who says what? Malay basar tamei leida. That if the embryonic sac is filled with flesh, she's tamei tumas leida. Rabbi Oshia says that ultimately, again, if it's filled with cloudy liquid, it's a machlokes. We have Rabbi Shmuel ben Levi, who said ultimately, again, even with clear liquid, it's a machlokes. So they asked Rav, Rabbi, what do you hold? Whose position do you hold like? Man kimar sirale. So we'll say third wide line, on chaf hamad aleph. So Rav responds, Amrlei, ani omer, echad zeh, v'echad zeh, eina chosheshes. I hold that in all of these cases, echad zeh ve'echad zeh, whether the embryo or the embryonic sac is filled with clear liquid or is filled with cloudy liquid, eina chosheshes. She does not have to be worried about a birth. This does not constitute a birth if all she has is an embryonic sac filled with liquid, whether it's cloudy or whether it's clear. That is not a leida. There is no tumas leida over here. But say that is the position of Rav Shmuel. Omer Shmuel says, echad zeh ve'echad zeh chosheshes. Shmuel says, I hold that all of these cases, ultimately it is a birth. Look at Rashi, chosheshes. The yosheves yimei tuma, ve'in lo yimei toar, the safek vlatu velo vade. So we'll say this is amazing. Shmuel says, I hold that in all of these cases, she has to be choshesh, whether the liquid was clear or whether it's murky, whether it's such, all of these cases, she's going to have to be choshesh for a vlad. Now, both say, understand what happens when we say choshesh for a vlad. So remember, I was saying, so the halachos of leida, right, have two sides to the coin. On one hand, what do you have? You have yimei tuma, right, and then what? You have yimei toar. Now, I will say, now remember again, in yimei toar, what's the halacha? Even if she bleeds, right, that blood is totally tahor. So remember, when Shmuel says that I'm choshesh for a vlad means chumras on both sides. Meaning, I'll be choshesh that when she's bleeding, that's dam leida, but we will not give her what? We will not give her Yemei Tohar. Right? So remember again, Yemei Tohar is an incredible chiddush. Because what does Yemei Tohar tell you? What does Yemei Tohar tell you? We'll say, by the way, I'm just telling you right now, you're going to have to pay for the cinnamon buns, right? If you do not get into this sugya. So that's the way this is going to work. So we'll say, so remember again, the halachos of Leida say like this. You have a certain number of days that when you bleed, you are tameh. Right? This is Leida 101. Leida 101. I will say, right, the different shear for a girl, right, than for a boy. For a boy, 7 days. For a girl, 14 days. And then after that, you have this incredible chiddush called Yemei Tohar. And Yemei Tohar tells you that what? Once the calendrical day switches over, actually with some machlokes, if it's a calendar din or if it's a physiological din, we're going to leave that aside. Either way, for the next period of time, if she bleeds, she is tahar. That's an incredible chiddush. When Shmuel says that echad zeh ve'echad zeh chosheshes, that's Shmuel saying that we have to be choshesh that this was a vlad. We have to be choshesh that when she miscarries this sac filled with clear liquid, right, cloudy liquid, flesh, we're going to go ahead and we have to be choshesh for a leida, which means what? We're going to give her all of the chumras of leida, but what? None of the kulas. So which means ultimately again, she will go and observe 14 days of Tumas Leida because that's the longest shear, but she does not get Yemei Tohar afterwards. So even if she's bleeding afterwards, depending on what time of the month that is, that may be dam Niddah, it may be dam Ziva, but that's what it means to be Chosheshes. Shmuel goes according to his reasoning, because what does Shmuel say? So we'll say, because Rav Dimi said, they never were metaher an embryo in nardo. That's whenever, right, and remember again, Shmuel is the Marda Asra of Narda. So in Shmuel's locale in Narda, they never declared anything that even was potentially an embryo tar. So the Gemara says, Labad me'ahu shafir da'asala kamei de Shmuel. So also there was this one exception about a person who brought a shaila to Shmuel, and it was some type of afterbirth. And what happens? The manach alei chutzara mehaygisa, the chazya mehaygisa. So I'll say there was one exception. So in general, we'll say Shitas Shmuel is, you have to be choshesh in all cases for a birth. There was one exception. One time someone brought to Shmuel, a woman had expelled something, they brought the shaila to Shmuel, and it was some type of sack filled with clear liquid. And what happened? They were able to go ahead and put a string on the, so I'll say, so Shmuel was looking at it, and what they did is, he was looking at it, we'll call it from the top, they put a string on the bottom, and Shmuel was able to see clearly the string through the sack of liquid. So apparently a sack of liquid that is so clear like that you could see a string perfectly through it from one side to the other, Shmuel was metayr that. But other than that, we're going to be choshesh for everything that ultimately, again, it is a birth. So the Gemara says, Im Isa devlatu, because the Shmuel said if this was some kind of birth, lo havi zig kulehai, it would not be that clear. Anything that is that clear cannot be a birth. If it's that clear, it must be some other type of liquid, certainly not a birth. Good. So I'll say, so therefore again, so what it comes down to is machlokes Rav and Shmuel. Right? So Rav ultimately says, Rav says, echad zeh ve'echad zeh eino chosheshes. So we'll say Rav apparently subscribes to the view that whether it's clear, whether it's cloudy, we're not going to assume that this is any type of vlad. Rav may subscribe to the skin threshold, which we're going to talk about further. But Lamaisa, Rav says in all of these cases where she's expelling some type of sac filled with liquid, that is not a birth. Shmuel says, we're choshesh for every single case that it is a birth, with one exception. The one exception will be that if the liquid contained in the sac is so clear that literally you could see right through it unobstructed, that will not be a vlad. So machlokes Rav and Shmuel. V'im hayim merukam. So also remember again, the Mishnah said that if the fetus was, I shouldn't say, meruka means developed, right? But obviously when we say developed doesn't mean fully, that you could actually see what it is, but rather developed just means it's a bit more developed, that it looks like a fetus. You can't tell gender. That's why again the Mishnah says, Teishev l'zachar u'lenekeva. In this type of case where she expels a more fully developed fetus, that you could tell it's a fetus, but you can't tell gender. So we're going to give her the chumras of the Niddah of both a boy and a girl. Tan Rabbanon, Ezu Shafir Merukam. So we'll say, what is the definition of a formed fetus? Because we'll say, obviously, it can't mean what? It can't mean what? Right? It can't mean a fetus that's obviously a fetus, because that's not a shaila, right? I will say, obviously, if you could tell that this is the beginnings of a fetus, that's not a shaila to talk about. So obviously, the Mishnah must be talking about a case of very early development. So the shaila is, how early in the development of the fetus does it constitute a fetus? So Abba Shal, so we'll say, by the way, just so you should know, these type of halachas actually have incredible contemporary relevance as well, because especially, again, as genetic screening becomes more and more developed, and they could detect certain abnormalities earlier on in halacha, or I should say, earlier on in pregnancy. So we'll say, so the shaila as to, this is what we spoke about on Shavuos, about the halachas of abortion. So the shaila, in terms of at what point in time can you terminate the pregnancy, become even more prevalent. So this notion of at what point in time is the fetus developed is exceptionally important. So the Gemara says as follows: Abba Shal says, Tchilas Biryasa Meirosho. So Abba Shal says the beginning of the formation is from the head. Now I will say, Abba Shal is not necessarily saying that the first part of the fetus that's formed is from the head. He's saying that when the head begins to become formed, that's ultimately, again, when it begins to become a recognizable entity. For example, what has to be there? This is incredible. It has to have two eyes, right? Two eyes that look like the eyes of a fly, which we'll say is another way of saying that's what? Even if it's just specks, right? Just little dots on the head. Right, Shazvov. Tani Rabbi Chia says, Meruchakin zemizeh. Ultimately, again, and the two dots, which represent the two eyes, have to be distanced from each other. In other words, they have to be recognizable as two separate dots. Shtei chotmin kishtei tipin Shazvov. And ultimately, again, it has to have two nostrils that are also like the two dots of a fly. So we'll say this idea of the two dots is what it's saying is the eyes don't have to be formed. It just has to be what? Recognizable, that's where the eyes will be. The nostrils don't have to be formed. It just has to be recognizable, that's where the nostrils will be. And the nostrils, right, have to be close to each other. Upiv masuach kechut hasayra. Ultimately, again, and its mouth, the mouth ultimately, again, has to be kichut asayra, has to be like a hair, like an extended hair. So as I said, the mouth doesn't have to be formed, but a string, like a line where the mouth will be, must be present. Ugviyaso ke'adasha. The boss is interesting. Rashi says gviyaso gid aver hazachar, if it's a male, right? So the male member has to be formed. V'hadis nanteish of zachar nekeva am mesapkalan im zachar nekeva kishay nikar ba aver maris. So we'll say again. Remember, this is not saying this has to be there. This is, meaning if you can't tell the gender, then remember we've already established that Allah will give the woman the chumras of both a male and a female. But at what point in time is male anatomy defined? Ugviyaso ke'adasha. If there's enough of a recognizable aver there, even if it's tiny, like the size of a barley corn. So in other words, if it's just recognizable that something is beginning to form there, that's enough of a determinant for male anatomy. Vim haisa nekeba, and ultimately again, but if the embryo is nekeba, nidona kisaora la'arka. So I'll say, interestingly enough, so then saora la'arka means literally, again, a barley corn according to its length. So we'll say a barley corn has a split down the middle. So again, if it has the appearance of female anatomy, then ultimately, again, you'll assume that you will judge the embryo to be female. V'chituch yadayim v'raglayim ein lo. So, I'm sorry. And I will say, may not yet. Rashi says, I will say, now at this point in time, even if the head is there, and even if there are two specks for the eyes, two specks for the nostrils, a little line for the mouth, and even beginning of what appears to be formation of female or male anatomy, so the hands and the feet are not yet formed. In other words, really what it's saying is the toes and the fingers, the hands and the feet are not yet fully formed. Va'alav mefurash b'Kabbalah. They will say ultimately again in quotes over here the pasuk from Eov, Halo kechalav taticheni ukvina takbieni, Ar ubasar talbishenu uba'atzamos v'gidim tisochacheni chayim v'chesed asisi made b'kudas chashamaruchi. See closer to this passage. So the Gemara says, "Vein botkin oso b'mayim." Then Rabbi say, interestingly enough, so here's what happens when a woman goes ahead and expels. So Rabbi say the reason that the Gemara is going ahead and quoting that pasuk, because the Gemara understands that pasuk ultimately to speak about the formation of the fetus. The chalav, you can look at actually, the chalav over here is a reference to the zera, is a reference to the semen of the father that takes from good. So I'll say, so now here's the issue. So a woman expels this fetus. So now you want to know, is it formed enough to be able to go ahead and create tumas leda? So obviously when the fetus comes out, it might not be immediately discernible. So what do you have to do? You have to clean it up to be able to see what she has expelled. So I will say, interesting enough, here the Gemara says, you do not check this fetus in water. Now, why is this interesting? Because remember again last week's daf, right? What happened if she expelled, right, this piece of what it looked like flesh? What do you do with it? You dissolve it in water. Now, remember again, remember, what's the chashash with that piece of flesh? In that case, we were not assuming that it was a vlad. What did we have to be choshesh for? Was it dam? So there, Abba say, there in dam, we want to see if it dissolves in water. Here, I want to see if this is a fetus. If it's a fetus, the Gemara says, don't put it in water. Why? Because water will dissolve it. And if it dissolves, you're not going to be able to see what it is. So in both shamayim ozin, water is very hard on this. Vitardin also. And therefore dissolves it. So what do? Ela botkin oson b'shemen. Rather, what you do is you actually go ahead and clean it up with oil. Shashemen rach umitzach tzecho. So I'll say what oil does is oil goes ahead and is able to remove anything else that's around it. Mitzach tzecho also means it makes it smooth. So I'll say what the shemen does is allows you to see the features in a more defined way. Vein rono sa'ela b'chama. And I'll say you only look at it ultimately where? In sunlight. So I'll say, so this is the idea. So remember, this is talking about, in the days where they had tumas leda. So also remember again, contemporarily, just we spoke about this, we have no independent body that's called tumas leda. We know about, but the only time that this comes up, it could come up on a technical level with the halachos of leda, is let's say again for some reason, it could happen. A woman has a C-section, and therefore again, may experience less bleeding as a result of the birth. So there, if for some miracle she's bleeding much less, if she gives birth to a boy or a girl, will be a minimum number of days that she has to observe as Yemei Tuma before going ahead and beginning her Yemei Tara to get to the mikvah. That's kind of the only time, but otherwise, halacha l'maisa, right? We don't have an independent halachos of Tumas Leda. It's kind of merged into Tumas Niddah. But again, understand when they were observing the construct of Tumas Leda, it was exceptionally important for a woman to know, what did I expel? Was this an embryo? In which case, I'm subject to Tumas Leda, which I remember again, gives her Yemei Tuma, but also what? Gives her Yemei Tohar, right? But also remember, requires her to bring a carbon afterwards, or was this just some type of discharge that's not an embryo, in which case, again, she'll go back potentially to Tumas Niddah, Tumas Ziva, depending on when all this happens. So therefore, again, we're checking with Shemen. So listen to this. Keitzad Bokino, so this is really very interesting. So how would they check the fetus? Keitzad Bokino, so the Gemara said, Keitzad Bokino, so why are you asking? We just said it. I just told you how to check it. Don't check it in water, check it with oil, and check it in sunlight. Ella, bema botkin osok leda im zachar im nekevahi. Rather, Rabbi said the Gemara is asking over a different question. Okay, so I got it. We're not going to put the embryo in water. We're going to clean it up with oil, check it in the sun. That's going to tell me about the eyes, the nose. What if I want to see if it's male or female? How do you check anatomically? So the Gemara says, Abashal bar Nash, Abashal bar Ramash, Omer, Mevi Kisam, Sheroshachal. So here's what you do. You bring a kisam. A kisam literally means like a small piece of wood. It's often translated as a splinter. But it means like a small piece of wood, Sherosho Chalak. But the top of the piece of wood has to be flat. So I'll say, what do? you move it. You take the little piece of wood with a flat top, and you move it up and down. Ba'osa makom. Osa makom means in a place where ultimately again the male anatomy would be. So if you see that when you move the piece of wood, it gets caught. In other words, almost it doesn't move smoothly back and forth. Then what? Be'odea shezacharu. Then ultimately, again, that which it is getting caught on is the beginning of the formation of male anatomy. V'imlav, and if it's smooth, it doesn't get caught, then what? Bi'adua shenekevahi, then that's indicative that the embryo is female. Amra nachan amra baravua, lo shanu ella min lamata lamala. So we'll say, ultimately, again, that's only true of what? Whereas when you're moving it up and down. So remember, moving it up and down, ba'osa makom will tell you if there's the beginning of male anatomy. Aval minat stadin, but if you're moving it back and forth, Rabbosai, and it gets caught on something, that could be indicative of what? Of the beginning of the formation of female anatomy. So we'll say, so halacha lamaisa, again, the Gemara says, so this is how you check. You take the splinter. If you go up and down, ultimately, we'll say, just remember, you don't have to check both ways, because essentially, what the halacha is going to say is, if you check up and down, and the piece of wood doesn't get caught in anything, then what? Then it's female. Amrav Adabar Abba, Tana, Im Haisa Nekeva, Niduna Kisaora Seduka. So you learned before that if it's in a keva, so how do you tell if it's in a keva? Kisaora Seduka. So we'll say just like the barley corn, right? The barley kernel is split down the middle. So if the embryo has that split down the middle as well, that's also indicative of an akeva. Maskef Rav Nachman, Vedilma Chut Shel Beitzim Ninhu. This is very interesting. So we'll say what we're saying over here is as follows. If you could perceive some type of split that goes down the middle by the embryo, that's indicative of the beginning of the formation of female anatomy. Says Gemara, maybe not. Maybe that's the chut shel beitzim. I don't know the technical, the scientific term, right? About the strand that holds the testicles in place. Yeah, between the scrotum wall. Is that? Okay, good. Chut shel beitzim. Good. Right in the middle. Good. Right. Good. Yeah, no, I shouldn't have thrown that out. That was foolish of me. Right, so I'll say, so again, I'm sure there's a new WhatsApp group that's starting right now. Right, so I'll say, so again, so maybe it's the chut shel beitzim, right? So what the Gemara is saying over here is, how do you know that little string-like thing between, right? Ultimately, again, is the beginning of the formation of female anatomy. Maybe that's the chut shel beitzim. Maybe that's the string ultimately again, or the line that divides the testicles. To which the Gemara says, no. Amra Abaye, hashta beitzim gufayu lo yadi, chut shel beitzim yadia. So Abaye says the way it would start is the testicles themselves would begin to form before that chut begins to form. So if there are no beginnings of the testicles there, that chut is not there either. Amra Avram, Tana. So we'll say, so again, more about the formation of the embryo. Really incredible. Around Tana, so we'll say, you have to understand also, what's incredible about this is, remember, this is Chazal's understanding of science, their understanding ultimately, again, of the formation of the embryo, based on what they were able to observe. So it's really incredible. You're getting a window into their level of understanding. So we'll say, again, you understand that Chazal, whenever Chazal speak about science, that's not like rooted in some deep esoteric Torah knowledge. That's based on what was the contemporary understanding. Rosh Shlomo Zalman, Zechatzat Livracha, has an incredible tshuva. Remember again, I will say back in Gittin, in the fourth parak of Gittin, the Gemara goes through all of these medicinal remedies. You remember again, like the Gemara says, first of all, what was incredible about Chazal's medicine was the cure-all for almost everything was, right, fatty meat and undiluted wine, which I guess if you eat enough of that, you forget about all of your problems anyway, right? That and bloodletting. Bloodletting was obviously very commonly held. But you remember again, the Gemara Maseches Gittin has some wild stuff. Like the Gemara says, if a person suffers from migraines, so what should you do? Cut open a rooster and put it on your head, right? So first of all, that probably makes you forget about everything else, right? If you're circling around the rooster. So Shlomo Zalman has a whole tshuva about this. He says, so somebody asked him, if I want to try these remedies today, could I try these remedies today? Shlomo Zalman Paskin, absolutely not. He said, Chazal are telling you that apparently this is what they used to do for migraines. But there's nothing kaddish about that. That's what they did in greater society. We know today that is not an appropriate, that's not an appropriate healing. So Shlomo Zalman says to use that today is foolishness. In other words, to learn medicine, right, to learn medicinal healing from the Gemara, that's not what Gemara is here for. Gemara is here to teach us halacha. It is true. Gemara also tells a lot about the things things that Chazal understood as contemporarily medically sound. But Lamaisa, to take those remedies today, Rav Shlomo Zalman said, would not be appropriate. So it's incredible to see how obviously, again, today we could see all of this, and it's amazing, with the 3D sonograms and everything they could do today, what you could see. So it's amazing to see how Chazal understood by what they were able to see, probably again from situations of expelled fetuses, right? Aborted fetuses, miscarriages. They were able to look at this. Amar Aram, Tana Beizire Kosav Kabein Chutin. The two legs of the embryo are like two strings. Beis Chutin Shal Zahuris. Two strands of red strings. Varam Amram Kishel Arev. And the type of string we're talking about, Tabosai, is the string of the wolf. Ushteiz Ra'osav, and the two arms Kabeis Chutin Shal Zahuris are also like two strings of red wool. Of Amram Kishal Shasi, like the warp. Amr Rav Shmuel Rabbi Yehuda Shinina. Rav Shmuel said to Rabbi Yehuda Shinina, Mishnah means sharp one. Lo Savit Uvda Ad Sheyasir. So we'll say, interestingly enough, so Shmuel said to Rabbi Yehuda, the truth is, the halach is Lo Savit Uvda, you should not declare a vlad until when? Until ultimately, again, it has hair on its head. So I'll say, so now this is now a new opinion, right? A new opinion now, ultimately espousing that when does the vlad become a vlad? When it has hair. Quite fascinating. Umyamar Shmuel, the Shmuel actually say this. Varmar Shmuel, achazu va'achazu chosheshes. Rabbi says, Shmuel just said on Amud Aleph what Rabbi say. Shmuel said in all cases we're choshesh. Remember, Shmuel said even if you just have the embryonic sac and it's filled with what? Clear liquid, cloudy liquid. Shmuel said halacha l'maisa, that's already a birth. So now Shmuel is going to tell me that only if it has hair. Rabbi said this is a much greater. And first of all, hair is not that important. I just want to go on record, right? They're saying hair is totally overrated, not necessary. Good. So also it says the Gemara, Shmuel, L'didi mefarshili minei demar Shmuel. So Ravami said, Shmuel said as follows: L'didi mefarshili minei demar Shmuel. I heard myself from Shmuel, lochush chosheshes. Yemetara lo yahabina le ad sheyasir. Rabbi said this is incredible. So this goes back to what we said before. Rabbi said it is possible that what Shmuel is saying is like this. Chosheshes means like this. We're going to give you essentially, what does choshesh mean? I'm going to give you what? The chumras of Leda. So Shmuel will say the chumras of Leda, in other words, to be choshesh, that maybe there was a vlad, and therefore to give you a tumah, that will do even with the embryonic sac filled with clear liquid. That will do. But to give you the other halachos of Leda, namely what? Yemei tohar, that even if she's bleeding, that's called tahar blood, that you could only do with a bona fide vlad. And what's the definition of a bona fide vlad, says Shmuel? Seyar, hair, which I will say would even be more than what? Even a more developed level, right? So apparently, again, even more than just skin, even more than just it actually has to have some level of hair. Says the Rabbi, incredible. So we're beginning to see, by the way, this kind of breakdown. I don't mean breakdown like falling apart. I mean like a breakdown in halacha. They begin breaking down the halacha. So we begin ultimately again with kind of what passes the threshold of a potential vlad. But even then, passing the threshold of a vlad to give you the chumradika elements of Leda, namely Yemei Tumah, but to be entitled to Yemei Tohar, which is an incredible halacha that the Torah conveys, is only once there is a bona fide Leda. Oh, that gets a bit more specific. Is it some more definition of the limbs? Is it skin? Is it hair, like Shmuel says? So the Gemara says as follows: L'meimra, the misapkele Shmuel, is that to say that Shmuel is mesupak at what point in time a vlad is formed? Va'hu shapir da'aseh lekamei debar Shmuel. So we'll say we know that Shmuel was incredibly proficient in terms of determining what was a vlad and what wasn't. How do we know this? We'll say this is incredible. Va'hu shapir da'aseh lekamei debar Shmuel. One time, someone brought a fetus, what looked like a fetus, some type of birth, something a woman to Shmuel. Let's listen to this. Amar ha bar arba'in v'chad yoma. Shmuel said this is a 41-day-old fetus. V'chashav miyoma da'azla l'tvila adahu yoma v'lo hava ela arba'in yomin. Well, see, here was the problem. When Shmuel sat down with the couple, what happened? It turned out that she had only gone to the mikvah 40 days ago. V'amar, Shmuel said, v'amar lahu, Hi Benida Baal. So that means you had relations with your wife when she was a Niddah. Kafse v'ode. We'll say they flogged the guy. So we'll say, so just to show you, by the way, how proficient Shmuel was in the halachos concerning Leda, we'll say this is amazing. So right, the couple comes, says, okay, it's a 41-day-old fetus. They say, but we only went to the mikvah 40 days ago. So we'll say, instead of Shmuel saying, okay, I guess I'm off by a day, he's like, no, you Rasha, right? You had relations with your wife when she was in Niddah, so he flogged him. That's how proficient. So the Gemara says Shmuel was Mesupak. Shmuel's not Mesupak about anything. He could tell exactly to the day how old the fetus is. Shiny Shmuel de Rav Guvrei. So you're right. Shmuel was proficient. Rabbi say this is incredible. Halacha has to be a system that can be administered even by people who are not like Shmuel. Right? Rabbi say not every dar has a Shmuel, but yet again the system has to be perpetuated even when the dar doesn't have a Shmuel. So Shmuel says, for me, I could easily tell how old the fetus is and what the status is. But the halacha must maintain a system even for people who are not as proficient. Therefore, again, Rabbi say what happens over here is as follows. That apparently, interestingly enough, Shitas Shmuel will be like this. Shitas Shmuel will be that halacha l'maisa, we're choshesh for Leda, i.e. to give her the chumras of Leda, yemei tumah, even from a very early point. So even if all she does is expel literally what looks like an embryonic sac that is filled with clear liquid or cloudy liquid, Shmuel will say halacha l'maisa, we're choshesh for Leda, and what? We will give her the chumras of Yemei Tumah. So she will automatically go ahead and be Tameh for 14 days as if she has given birth to a girl, which is the most chumr type of Tumas Leda. But in order to make it a bona fide Leda, i.e. that she will go ahead and get Yemei Toar, that doesn't happen until when? Until ultimately, again, she births a fetus that has hair. Only once it has a level of maturation that has hair does she get Yemei Toar. Incredible. But let's go weiter. Hamapela sandal. So, if you remember again, so the Mishnah said that if a woman is mapil a sandal, right? So, we'll say sandal literally means what? Literally means a piece of flesh that looks like a shoe. Now, both say now what we've seen already in the Mishnah is that essentially, how does Chazal view a sandal? A sandal is a flattened fetus. So, we'll say when you have a situation of a sandal, when essentially she was pregnant with twins. She's pregnant with twins. And one of the fetuses essentially overtook the other and ended up flattening the other fetus. That's the Hamapelas Kimin sandal. So Rashi says, Teishev l'zachar u'lenekeva. So watch this. This is fascinating. Tana Abanon, sandal dome ledag shalyam. A sandal sometimes resembles dag shalyam. Rashi says, dag yesh bayam u'shmo sandal. So apparently there was a sandal fish. So the Gemara says, "Mitchilaso vladtu." So in the beginning, it was a viable vlad. Ella shenitzraf. But I will say, what happened? It was flattened. Rashi says, "Nimach." It was flattened. Sandal domel lashon shalshar. Right? Hagadol. Right? I'm sorry. Shashar gadol. So we'll say sandal. Another opinion. Rabbi Shmuel says sandal looks like the tongue of a large ox. Mishum rabosenu heidu sandal tzarich tzuras panim. That it's, in order to be a sandal, ultimately again it has to have some formation of facial features. Rashi says, "Sarach tzuras pan." Amar Rabbi Yehuda, Amar Shmuel, halacha sandal tzarich tzuras panim. Ultimately, I will say to be a sandal, there has to be some formation of facial features. Amar Rabbi Ada, Amar Yosef, Amar Rabbi Yitzchak, sandal tzarich tzuras panim va'afilu me'achorav. I will say now in the formation of the sandal, even if the sandal has the facial features, but it looks like they're on what would look like the back of the head, that's still enough of a tzura. Why is that? The imagery that the Gemara gives is what? If you slap someone really hard, what happens? Their head moves to the side. The sandal, remember, is being pushed, right? Is being pushed by the other birth in the mother's uterus. So what's happening? It's possible that even what looks like the facial features on the back of the sandal's head is really just what? The sandal's head being pushed to the side by the force of the other fetus. Bimei Rabbi Yanai, Bikshu letar es sandal shein lo tzuras upon him. Suppose in Israel Rabbi Yana, they want to be metar a sandal that did not have tzuras upon him. They didn't have facial features. Oh, Rabbi Yana, tiartem es avlados. Rabbi Yana said you can't do that because if you do that, you're being metar vlados. And I will say that's also obviously vatayim mishram v'seinu. Here you do sandal tzarech tzuras upon him. But one second, we just said that in order for it to be a sandal, it has to have some formation of facial features. So the Gemara says, Am Rabbi Yochanan, Meiduso Shabi Nechunya, Nishnis Mishnah Zu. Based on the testimony of Rabbi Nechunya, we taught this Mishnah. Am Rabbi Zeira, Zocha bar Rabibi b'shmaitei. Shabbos Rabbi Zeira said, Rabibi was really Zoch in his teachings. Da'ana v'hu habinan. Because he and I were both there. Yasvinan kamed Rabbi Yochanan, and we're both sitting before Rabbi Yochanan. Ki amar la lahashmaita kadam ihu. So ultimately, again, he got in. He said over the ruling before me. Amar v'zachaba. And ultimately, again, therefore, because he said it first, the teaching was always given over in his name. Beautiful. La meskir sandal. So remember again. So now we have this whole discussion about what the definition of a sandal is. Right? Does a sandal require facial features, right, or not? So we'll say, now, the Gemara says a more fundamental shaila. Why are you getting all caught up in sandal? Remember again, we'll say, what's the case of a sandal? A sandal essentially is a twin, right? A twin that never developed. Says the Gemara, La meskir sandal, v'alo sandal she'eni mo vlad. Remember again, we'll say, what's the halacha? A sandal, right? A sandal is a twin. It's the fetus that never developed. So I don't understand. So we'll say, which means what? There is another healthy baby, Baruch Hashem, that is being born. Nebuch, the sandal didn't make it, but there's another. So why are you getting all caught up with how long you have to sit, right? What are the halachos of a sandal? It's very simple. Idis yaldin akeva badei hachanami. So we'll say, so remember again, so the Gemara says, so we'll say, the question of the Gemara is, why are you worrying about the sandal? There's going to be the halachos of Yimei Tumah and Yimei Tara. Anyway, why? Why? Because there is a birth of a regular baby. To which the Gemara says, you're right. That works fine if the other baby that's born is what? Is a girl. Right? Is a girl. If it's a girl, then what Rabosai? Then ultimately, again, remember, you have the longest period of Yimei Tumah and the longest period of Yimei Toar. Fine. Hacham asking, what's the case? This Yalad Zachar Badei. Rabosai, the case is where the viable baby was what? Was a male. So what's the shaila? So we'll say, what's the shaila? The shaila is what's the status of the sandal? Mao detema. Hoivan Rabbi Yitzchak bar Ami Isha. So we'll say, listen to this. Now, the Gemara is going to introduce something here, Rabosai, that we're going to see on Chav Ches in 2 days from now. So now watch this, Rabbi said, this is incredible. So I'm just going to translate it now, but we're not going to get into it now. So let's say the baby that is healthy is a male. We're now not sure what to do with what? About the sandal. So the Gemara says, Ma'odetema, ho'eva am Rabbi Yitzchak bar Ami, Isha mazra'as tchila, yoledes zachar. Rabbi said, this literally means if a woman emits seed first, she has a male child. We're going to see what this means. Ish mazriat tchila, yoledes nekeva. If the man emits seed first, then what? He has girls. So the Gemara says, Midaha zachar, hanami zachar. So I would say like this. If the healthy baby is what? If the healthy baby is a zachar, that must mean that what? That the sandal is also a zachar. Kamash malon ema shnehem hizir b'vasachos. Hi zachar behind the keva. So I'll say ultimately again, it's possible that perhaps both of them emitted seed at the same time, which would result in what? Right? If you have twins, one boy, one girl. So ultimately, we're not sure what to do with the sandal. Davar acher shimteleit nekeva. So I'll say. So again, so that's possibility one. So the Gemara wanted to say, I don't understand. If sandal only comes about when it's a twin, that means there's another healthy baby. If there's another healthy baby, let's just go by whatever the other baby is. To which the Gemara says that works fine if the healthy baby is a girl. What if the healthy baby was a boy? So you might say, well, if it's a boy, then by definition that means the sandal was also a boy. To which the Gemara says, maybe not. Even though, again, we're going to see that gender is often defined by who emits seed first. Again, we'll discuss exactly what that means. But the Maisa is possible that they emitted seed together, and therefore, again, the healthy baby was a boy, maybe the sandal was a girl. That's why we have to go back to our whole discussion about the sandal and figuring out at what point in time does the sandal constitute a real fetus. Davar acher. The other possibility is, Shim telit nikev lefnei shkias hachama, v'sandal acher shkias hachama, mona tchilas niddah l'rishon, tchilas niddah l'acharon. So I'll say there's another possibility. Even if you want to say that the sandal has the same gender as what? As the healthy baby that is born, nevertheless, halacha l'maaseh, I will say it's possible that if the healthy baby was born, right, if the healthy baby was born before Shkia and the sandal was born after Shkia, we may ultimately, again, still have two different timetables for how she's going to calculate Yemei Tumah and Yemei Tahar. Therefore, again, Abosai, the nature, identity, and development of the sandal is of paramount importance. We'll stop over here for today. Sandal to be continued in Mirat Hashem tomorrow.